All right, we'll go ahead and get started. I want to thank everybody for joining us for our first legislative briefing of the Independence Chamber of Commerce for 2021. No better day to do a Zoom call than a day when it's wet and snowy outside. So we appreciate everyone joining us for this first call. We're going to go right into it. We've got three representatives who've been able to join us here this morning. And I'm going to start out with Representative Barnes. Representative Barnes, the Democrat, he represents parts of Kansas City, Jackson County, and District 28 in the Missouri House of Representatives. First elected to his first term in November of 2016. And Representative Barnes, you have the floor. Tell us about what's going on in Jeff City here in the first week and a half.
Well, good morning, everyone. Like I said, my name is Jerome Barnes. And, I spent 6 years in the military. And there's one thing that the military always taught us. It was about rank and the people that, you report to. And so since our minority caucus chair is on this Zoom, I would give her the opportunity to decline or let me go first, or if she want to go first, she's more than welcome.
Representative, thank you very much for that recognition, and I am happy to let you go first, and then I'll follow up to correct any of the mistakes that you make.
I will make some.
Okay.
All right. Well, good morning. My name is Jerome Barnes. I represent the 28th District, and on January the 6th, I was sworn into the 101st General Assembly for my third term. I do cover a portion of independent, which covers about 1,000 constituents. I try to communicate with them at least 3 to 4 times a year, if not more, by going out, knocking on a few doors. This year, I've been assigned to the Veterans, Tourism, and Economic Development and Ethics. So far, there's been about 878 bills filed in the House, 394 over in the Senate. On January the 11th, all our statewide officials were sworn in. Our governor got sworn into his full term. He replaced Eric Greitens for 2 years, and now he get to serve a full 4-year term. Due to COVID, some of our colleagues have came down with the virus, and we will be out of session all next week, but we do plan on coming back in session Monday after next. The governor is due to give the State of the State address on the 27th. Judiciary is scheduled to come in and do their thing on February the 2nd. This past week was a week and a half, well, pretty much a whole legislative session in one day. On January the 13th, we made history. We had to censure one of our colleagues. His name was Representative Wilder Price. The Ethics Committee, which I do serve on, recommended that he be censured. The vote was 140 to 3. Once we got into the little mini, I call it a trial, they wanted to not only censure him, but they wanted to expel him from the House. However, they couldn't get the 2/3 votes necessary to expel him. They only got 91 and they needed 109, I think, in order to get him expelled. So there's so much happening, and I'm willing to answer any questions.
Thank you, Representative Barnes. We'll come back at the end. We'll do questions. How's that all at once? Is that
okay,
all right?
Great.
I'm going to introduce Representative Ingrid Burnett. She is a Democrat. She represents the northeast area of Kansas City and parts of Sugar Creek, Independence, and Jackson County for District 19 in the House of Representatives, and she was elected to her first 2-year term in November of 2016. Good morning, Representative Burnett.
Good morning. It's great to be here, and you did a great job of describing the district that I serve. I just want to point out that I also take in part of the Englewood Arts District that I'm quite fond of, and looking forward to the fundraising event that's coming up soon. I hope we get to hear a little bit about that today. I think Representative Barnes did an amazing job of describing what happened these past 2 weeks. And as we kicked off, it's been really topsy-turvy kind of continuation of the uncertainty that we keep bumping up against with the COVID and now the concern about security. So we will not be in session next week. We just got committee assignments, and I will continue to serve on the budget committee and on the joint committee on education, but there's a new committee that was established in our rules that is called a legislative review committee. And the purpose of that committee is primarily to keep bills from getting loaded up with amendments that wouldn't necessarily fit within the title or the subject. And so bills that get amended in committee or on the floor can be reviewed or sent back to the Legislative Review Committee to examine and assure that the amendments that were added are proper. And I will be serving on that committee as well. And that's really about all I have to add. I think, again, Rep. Barnes, you did great.
Okay, thank you, Ingrid. And finally, our last representative here this morning is Representative Robert Sauls. He's a Democrat, represents a large portion of independents here in Jackson County for District 21. He was first elected to his first 2-year term in November of 2018 and reelected last November. Good morning, Representative Sauls.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I appreciate that. Yeah, I think they've covered a lot of what I would have covered. Ultimately, I guess the thing I would add is I could add my committees. I am on ranking member of crime prevention. I've been added to emerging issues. I'm on judiciary, insurance, and veterans as well. So, and I'm also on the Veterans Commission. So that is I've got 5 committees and 1 commission, and I just look forward to representing my district, and appreciate you for having me on here.
Let's kind of open it up to questions, and I'll start it off a little bit. For the 3 representatives, what do you see as the big issues in Jefferson City this year? We hear a lot about COVID liability. We hear about Wayfair legislation, tax offsets. What do you kind of see percolating out of this next few months?
Well, I'll take a little shot at it. I do believe that the priorities of the legislative session, not everyone, but the charter school, school vouchers, there may even be a little small fuel tax increase. I'm thinking that foster care, I think that's a top priority of the speakers. And so those are some of the things that I just hold in the back of my head that I think is gonna come out of this legislative session.
I would agree. And I think we might see some more activity around the early childhood education that was brought up in each of the inaugural addresses that we heard from the leadership, from the governor to the House Speaker. I think also when we're looking at the budget, we have a really unique situation with our budget this year, because by postponing the deadline for taxes, for people to submit their taxes, we moved that revenue from the fiscal year 20 into fiscal year 21. And that gave us kind of a false increase in our revenue picture as we look at that. And yet, when you take that out, the projection for the revenue, the consensus revenue estimate is a negative. So we were anywhere from negative 4.4% growth to positive 13, which is huge, right? And we're going to have to figure out a way through the budgeting process to appropriate that money appropriately and effectively. And I think that should be an interesting process for y'all to watch.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with what Representative Burnett and Representative Barnes indicated. I would agree. I think that I think vouchers and charter schools are very much going to be a priority of the speaker, and I would anticipate that there's going to be some movement on that. I think I think that's very likely at this point. But you know, one other component to this, which was briefly addressed earlier, is that I anticipate this session to be somewhat probably like last session as well. I think that there's you know, we have to take a break already because we've got members of the body who've tested positive. I am currently quarantining because I had contact with someone who did test positive, and you know, I who knows whether or not this is going to be, if we'll have more breaks as the session goes. You know, you still have a lot of people in the house not wearing masks, and you know, who knows? So there may be further incidents such as this where we're going to have to shut things down because it's just too much of a risk. So that's something as well. But other than what was mentioned, I agree with that. I think that adoption and early childhood education are things that are going to be addressed. So I would agree.
And I just adding one more thing, you know, we passed the Medicaid expansion at the ballot box, and I think we're going to see some efforts to adapt that and modify that in a variety of ways yet to be revealed. But there certainly is chatter about that.
A question in the chat, and Dan O'Neill, it was your question. Do you want to unmute your microphone and ask that of the representatives?
Yeah, do you think we'll see any action on gas tax or infrastructure?
I think that we potentially could. I know that there's been talk of that. I think with the gas tax, the problem last time, and I heard this quite a bit, was that there were additional add-ons to it. I think it probably would have passed if it would have been if it would have been just a clean bill regarding gas tax and fixing the roads. I think that we will see. It's possible, you know, but ultimately the problem with it is when it comes to taxes, there's a very slow reluctance to. Well, there's a very slow reluctance to raise them in any sense. So, you know, there's going to be some pushback. Of course, Wayfair is in there as well, but I think that's something that it sounds like they will have implement a Wayfair tax, but yet introduce a tax cut to go along with that. So, you know, it's possible there may be something like that. I know infrastructure is something that we're all concerned with. The roads, the bridges, all have, I mean, obviously they need work. So I guess to answer your question, it's possible. I can't hear.
Any other responses?
Hey, Representative the governor mentioned on a call that I was on with him last week, was it the South Carolina model for the gas tax? Am I remembering that correctly? Are you familiar with that?
Is what the South Carolina model? I'm sorry, what they're.
He mentioned on the gas tax that you know, he's just really concerned if it goes to the ballot again and fails. I mean, it just gives, you know, it just supports the argument that people don't want it, right? Because it's been twice and failed twice, and you know, it's trying the third time. But he mentioned a model. I think he said it was in South Carolina, where it's essentially an optional tax that you can deduct certain gas, fuel expenditures, if I'm remembering this correctly, on your tax return for, such things as like, farm equipment or commuting costs. So he was, sort of interested in perhaps exploring that, and that would be done legislatively and wouldn't require a vote. So I obviously, don't have a lot of details about it, but.
Right. I think it sounds like something that he would, I mean, I haven't heard that, but that doesn't mean, that doesn't mean that that's not what they're looking at. Quite frankly, I would imagine that if there was going to be a tax that they were going to implement, I would anticipate something like that. I understand. I think, I mean, it didn't, I still think it would have passed if it would have been just a flat tax, and if it would have been more, if it would have been kind of staggered a little bit more, I think that it probably would have passed. Because I know that when I spoke with people who voted against it, or many, I'm obviously not going to speak for everyone, but when I spoke to many people who voted against it, that was their complaint was, they don't want to pay, they don't want to pay a tax for something, and then particularly as such as roads that we clearly, roads, bridges, and we clearly need to address those in this state, and if so, they don't want to pay money toward that and it goes somewhere else. Like, this is for this, it should go for that. If you want to add to the highway patrol, that's something else that, we could do as well. But I think the concern is that there's no, when you're splitting it like that, what portion goes here, what portion goes there, what does that ultimately look like, what figures are we looking at long term, and is it really going to address the problem at hand? So I kind of, I could see why they'd be concerned to throw it up again on the ballot, but I think that it probably would pass if they would just make it flat, just make it a clean bill. But to your question, Mayor, I would say that if it, that sounds like something that he would probably do. I haven't heard that yet, but I could certainly look into it.
Yeah, I've talked to several people about this, and like I said, the first tax that was on the books was it was kind of clouded. If I think a pure tax, a small pure tax would be the best thing that they're looking at. So hopefully this time around it would be very small, because you got the Hancock Amendment that they don't want to violate. So it's probably very small. And I apologize, y'all. I'm on with Raytown at the same time, so I didn't want to miss this, because I missed you guys all last year, and I promised myself that I wasn't going to do that again. And so I'm on Raytown and Independent here at the same time. And they asked me a question, but I was talking to you guys, so I apologize.
We appreciate you multitasking.
I have
a couple of
questions regarding.
Yeah, Dr. Earl, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question regarding K-12 withholdings. In June, education saw a significant withholding. And then again in July, there was about $123 million withheld from the foundation. If you look at the state's general revenue up through the end of December, we're about a positive 908 million. And even taking into account the way in which income tax was delayed into July, that's about 780 million. So we're still a positive approximately 120 million, but the governor has yet to release the withholdings from July. Do you know if that's a possibility? My concern is with the second round of ESSER funds, the CARES Act money, that the state is going to say, well, you're getting money from the federal government and still withhold really actually 3 rounds of cuts that have occurred to public ed.
I will just, I have not heard about that specifically, but I think, we have really been kind of overwhelmed with getting ourselves organized and preoccupied with that. But what I have heard, I think, is that the governor is waiting on that because he wanted to allow the budget committee to meet to discuss these other appropriations to see how they would impact that. And like I said, we just got our committee assignments last night. So I was expecting for budget committee to meet this coming week, but now that we are not having session at all, that looks like we're going to have to wait for an answer for that.
I have another question, education related for the representatives. As a representative of the Blue Springs School District Board of Education, reading through all the list of bills that have been filed, there's a large quantity of education based. Obviously, your speaker mentioned their push to do a lot of education work. My concern is so many of these bills, reading through them, are very targeted to local representative districts trying to fix local isolated problems. The worry is that if these kind of bills get passed, it negatively impacts districts that are doing perfectly fine. It's common with vouchers. It seems like right now, a lot of your constituents are like, we're not happy with what's going on in school, so give us vouchers so we can choose somewhere else. Other districts only have a limited capacity to take in students. It can create a lot more problems also than it's not just a blanket fix. So I was just curious on your three opinions on a lot of the education bills that are being filed, and how they could negatively impact our local school districts.
Sure.
Jerome, do you want to start with that
Yeah.
one?
Yeah, I can start on that. The process, like I said, there's about 878 bills filed right now. And hey, between now and May, that could double. That could be probably 1,600 bills filed. Every bill, I say, go through the wash and dry at least 2 or 3, 4, 5, 6 times. So it's thoroughly vetted. Each bill is thoroughly vetted. I had the opportunity to serve on the governor's education committee a couple of years ago. And I know there are some schools and districts only have 20 kids, and there's some schools and districts have 20,000 kids. And so between those, there has to be a meeting somewhere. And we understand exactly what you're saying, that that little school might need something that these big schools, wouldn't fit, or the big school needs something that wouldn't fit in the small school. So each school is each bill is thoroughly vetted. It goes through a rigorous process before it becomes law. And any of those steps that could kick the bill out and send it all the way back and kill it, all the way from the speaker's desk to the governor's desk for it to be signed. So I think that it's thoroughly vetted. And the way you guys can participate is when a bill that's affect your area, feel free to get in touch with your legislator and let them know how that bill affect your area. I have received numerous emails already on bills that have not been assigned to a committee yet, letting me know that these bills is a disaster for their operation. And that's what you need to do right there, is to let us know where these bills stand with your organization or with your company, so we can go to bat and bring those issues forward during these committees and floor debates and stuff like that.
Thank you.
I think, just to add to that, I think there's a very real likelihood that, I understand that how these bills will impact our community and our school district, but I think there's a very real likelihood that there's going to be some movement, particularly with regard to charter schools. I know that they're using, I know that a couple of them are using the current state of the pandemic and that to argue for vouchers. I don't think that, this is a very difficult needle to thread, so to speak. You're trying to balance everything. I think everybody, people want kids to go back to school, but they want it to be a safe environment. And ultimately it's a difficult time, and that's in my opinion not a reason to just say, well, we're gonna, let's open up and let kids go wherever. I think there's problems with that as well with regard to the voucher part of that. So I don't know. I think that, to answer your question, I think I think I could see that there's a negative component to that. I agree. Reach out to your representatives, reach out to neighboring representatives, reach out to, the speaker and send letters and emails and get others too as well. I think that's the best way. One of the best ways is to just essentially reach out and get as many people who think as you do to reach out as well. And that's probably the best way to handle that, I would say.
And to add a couple more things to that is, I've been in the legislature for the last 4 years, and each year charter schools came up, each year vouchers came up. And, pretty soon it's going to get across the finish line. That's what it seems like. Or they will continue to bring it up and it get defeated. I think our voice really carries loudly when we hear from our constituents and voice their opinion about different things. So
I would agree. I think there's a bigger appetite for bringing this up, certainly in legislative efforts in the legislature in general. But a lot of what happens depends on the kind of pushback each representative gets and each senator gets from their constituents. Because that's really what has impacted whether or not that legislation crosses the finish line in the past.
And good, one quick point to that too. Ingrid made a good point there, and that is the Senate has a much greater chance, in my opinion, of stopping this. So that would be somebody I would certainly contact your senators and make sure that they know as well.
Any additional questions from our attendees this morning? Not seeing any more.
I have one. I didn't hear any discussion about the liability issue, the COVID liability issue. What can the state do about that? And is there any movement to do anything about that?
I think that is one of the issues that they want to take up is to, there's past legislation that would curb the liability around COVID on certain entities. But as I said, we really have been distracted these first couple of weeks with getting ourselves organized and dealing with internal discipline issues. So I think more will be revealed, but yes, I do think we're going to see some action on that.
yeah, I do too. They call a special session to try to get that through the system, and then they dropped it at the end there. So it will be coming back this session. I'm strictly, there's some, always 5%, 2% in everything we do is going to be some negativity, but I'm really, I don't know if I'm 100% against it or just halfway against it, but I just don't think it's the right thing to do. For example, I know that the governor signed an executive order back here saying that I think if a firefighter or somebody catch COVID on the job, it was like an on-the-job injury or it was covered. But I think that order is going to expire here pretty soon, and therefore it won't be covered anymore. So I just think our first responders and stuff like that, this bill, if it do come forward, really needs a lot of creaking, squeaking, or whatever you call that, to make it really work. Because there's, I know nursing home, they want to, exempt all of them, so they're not responsible for any liability. And so I just, it's going to come up, and it's going to be probably a healthy debate on the floor about it. So,
Sure.
Yeah.
I think I think we'll see it as well. What the end result is going to look like, I don't know. I kind of think there's a line, right? I think there's a certain line that we should go to, but not cross. But I certainly understand that we should have, I think it just depends on the circumstances. But I would anticipate that we'll see that this year.
I would just like to add that, on this particular call here, we have 3 members of a party that's in the super duper minority. And one of the biggest lessons I've learned from that in my 4 years is that no bill really comes forward until it has been whipped and vetted through the Republican majority caucus, and there is a very oftentimes elaborate strategy about to go with it that may include having it pass, or may just include allowing people to get up and have their day on the subject with an amendment, and then withdraw the amendment at the end of the discussion before it ever gets voted on. All of that is part of, is political strategy, and they are very good at it. And we are not privy to what that strategy is. And that's just, what we have to work with.
Thank you.
Questions?
Oh,
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I neglected to admit, I don't know if I did or not, but I'm just feeling so proud about it. I want to talk about it a little taste. I have a bill that's called, it's Porsche Pirate. It's really not Porsche Pirate, it's mail theft. I have a lot of constituents have had their patches stolen off of their porch this past summer and winter. I did file the bill last year, but this year I'm hoping to get some traction on it, because I have a senator who has filed it over on the Senate side, and I have another guy who has filed it in the House on the Republican side. So the bill has been filed 3 times now, and hopefully we can change the law where there's a stiffer penalty for taking a package off of your porch. Right now, the law says if a person takes a package off your porch, it has to be a certain value in order to get a penalty there. But now, if my bill passed, if you take it off that porch, he's facing a year in jail without any, if the prosecutor can prove that they took it off the porch. Prosecutors like the bill. I like the bill. I want to stop the thieves from taking your package off your porch. So I thought I'd share that with you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any final questions? If not, we're going to go ahead and wrap up. Before we wrap up, I want to introduce Ward Franz. Ward joined our staff here just 2 weeks ago, 1st of January. He is our new Legislative Affairs Director, the first time we've ever had this position with the Chamber. And I'm going to let him introduce himself. He's going to I kind of told him I'd walk him through this first one, but he'll be kind of taking lead on this going forward in our legislative efforts. So Ward, why don't you introduce yourself, please?
Right. Well, Tom, I appreciate it. And thank you for being here, because all this technical stuff is dangerous to me. But now I want you to see a face with the name. I've been the one bugging everybody about the meetings, and plan on being a part of your life a lot more in the future. And I look forward to building those relationships, because to me, that's what it's all about. Kind of where I came from, I was a state rep from 2004 through 2012. And then in 2017, I was chief of staff for Lieutenant Governor Parson before he moved down the halls. So familiar with the building, familiar with how things work, but I know it's definitely a team effort. And so I just wanted you to know that when you get an email or a call from me, I want you to kind of see a face to go with it, so that we could begin talking and visiting, and would love to buy a cup of coffee for you, or visit with you in your district, or wherever you feel comfortable doing that. So.
Thank you, Ward. We do this every month, every third Friday at 8:30 in the morning. You'll see invites in our newsletter. We will probably continue to do this via Zoom, regardless of what happens with COVID, just for safety purposes. We'd like to eventually get back to in person, but for convenience sake, I think for both the representatives and senators, and as well as our attendees, we're going to do a hybrid. So we'll let you know in February, but we will continue to have the Zoom option throughout the rest of this legislative session, which I know for Representative Barnes, since he's multitasking, you can't do that in person two ways unless we split you in half. So we appreciate everyone being here today, and Representative Burnett and Barnes and Sauls. Thank you so much for your public service and serving in Jefferson City and representing your constituents. It's greatly appreciated.